There is a silence that belongs only to North Korea. It's the kind that doesn't come from peace but from fear, an engineered quiet that presses against the skin like humidity. Streets lined with identical grey buildings, their windows blind and uncurious. Faces that look forward but never around. A sky that seems to watch as if even the clouds report what they see. This is where the idea of escape begins. Not as a plan but as a whisper, buried deep in the mind of someone who knows that thinking itself can be dangerous. Imagine waking up in a city where the world beyond the border doesn't exist, where maps end at the river, where every voice on the radio repeats the same truth until it replaces your own. To be born in North Korea is to inherit a cage you can't see. It's a country where geography has become destiny, and to step beyond it means erasing yourself from the story you were told since birth. And yet, for some, the need to see what lies beyond that invisible wall becomes stronger than the fear of death. The journey begins in whispers, in dark kitchens where the power flickers and families speak in coded sentences, in factory lines where one worker slips another a rumor. Someone made it out. Someone crossed the river and lived. That small rumor grows like a pulse in the chest, feeding an impossible hope. It's the kind of hope that makes people dream while pretending not to. Pyongyang is clean, ordered, and staged, but the further you travel from it, the more the illusion breaks down. In the countryside, hunger writes its message across the bones of the people. Villages crumble under decades of neglect. Children dig through frozen soil for roots. Mothers barter for handfuls of corn, and fathers disappear for speaking too loudly. And through it all, the propaganda never stops. Loudspeakers hum every morning, filling the air with songs of devotion to the leader. But behind the devotion hides something else, a fatigue so deep that it begins to resemble silence. At night, the borderland comes alive in a different way. The northern horizon, faintly lit by distant Chinese cities, glows like another world. People in the villages near the Yalu and Tumen rivers can sometimes see it, a shimmer of light, electric and free. For many, it's the first glimpse of what lies beyond the regime's control. The light becomes a promise and a question. If freedom exists so close, why can't they touch it? But escape is not a simple act. It's not running, it's erasing. To escape North Korea is to become a ghost before you even leave. It means pretending until the last moment. It means smiling while your heart breaks. It means saying goodbye without words because words can be overheard. In that country, everything speaks. The walls, the neighbors, the wind. There are families who plan for months, hiding food in hollow walls, collecting scraps of information about routes through the mountains. Some listen to smuggled radios under blankets, their faces lit by the faint blue glow of forbidden news. Others pay brokers, men and women who live in the shadows between nations, guiding the desperate through rivers and forests. But even these brokers are not safe. Some work for the government. Some vanish after a single failed attempt. The Yalu River, narrow but deadly, is where many stories end. Its water is cold and fast, the current pulling toward the Chinese shore like a promise that can turn into punishment. On the other side are lights, sounds, and rumors of life. But between here and there stands the invisible line of soldiers, dogs, and the certainty of execution if caught. The border is not just physical, it's psychological. To approach it is to unlearn fear in order to survive it. Most North Koreans who dream of leaving don't do it for politics. They do it for hunger, for their children, for the possibility of a meal without ration tickets. The idea of freedom, in the Western sense, is a language they haven't been allowed to learn. What they crave first is bread, warmth, and dignity. Only after they cross the river does freedom start to mean something else. Every year, a few hundred succeed. Thousands try. Most fail. But to those who make it, the world on the other side feels like stepping into a dream where the colors are too bright, the noise too loud, and the air too clean. It overwhelms them. They've lived their entire lives in grayscale, and now suddenly everything is in color. But that color comes with guilt. For every person who escapes, there are 10 who disappear for trying. Even in China, the nightmare isn't over. Defectors are hunted by North Korean agents and Chinese police working together. Capture means repatriation, forced return, And for defectors, that is worse than death. Those who are caught are tortured, interrogated, and sent to camps where survival is a matter of weeks. So they hide in attics, in churches, in safe houses. Some are sold into marriages, others into labor. Freedom, they discover, is not a single event. It's a journey without a finish line. The outside world rarely sees the beginning of that journey. Cameras are not allowed near the border. Journalists who try to film are detained or expelled. The North Korean state calls defectors traitors, criminals, parasites. Their names are erased, their families punished. Sometimes entire family lines vanish after one person crosses. The country rewrites its history to pretend they never existed. Yet, the stories persist, smuggled out through whispered testimonies, through recordings hidden in clothing, through the words of those who made it to South Korea, Thailand, or the United States. They describe the same moment, the breath before the crossing, the cold water, the feeling of hands slipping on wet rocks, the flash of searchlights, the sound of a gun, the heartbeat louder than the river itself. That moment separates the living from the disappeared. Those who cross into China must learn to disappear in a different way. They erase their accent, their habits, their fear. They learn to smile differently, walk differently, and eat differently. They become invisible inside a world that doesn't want to acknowledge them. Even among those who help, there is risk. Chinese citizens caught sheltering defectors face prison, so trust becomes currency. One wrong word can end everything, but even as they run, there's something that never leaves them, the idea of home. Not the country, but the people. The parents left behind, the siblings still rationing rice, the friends who never dared to dream. Every defector carries a ghost, a presence that follows them across borders. Many speak of the guilt as heavier than the fear ever was. Freedom, they say, is not just light. It's a weight. The stories that emerge from the defectors aren't just about escape. They're about identity, about what it means to rebuild yourself after being told who you are since birth. In the South, some struggle to adapt. They find themselves lost in abundance, confused by choice. A supermarket aisle becomes overwhelming, a smartphone alien. For them, freedom feels like both salvation and exile, and yet even with the fear, the hunger, the uncertainty, people still try. Every year, despite the guards, the guns, and the freezing rivers, someone else whispers, "I'm going." They leave with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the image of light on the other side. They don't know that the journey will take years, that they'll walk through jungles, cross entire countries, sleep under floors. But in that moment, they believe. The most haunting part isn't the escape itself, it's what drives it. The silence of a world where every thought is monitored. The emptiness of a smile practiced for survival. The child who doesn't know that the rest of the world can see cartoons, hear music, speak freely. The realization that the life you've been told is perfect is, in truth, a performance meant to hide decay. Once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. And in North Korea, seeing is a crime. The first step toward freedom doesn't happen on the border. It happens in the mind. It begins when a person stops believing the story they were taught. That moment of disbelief is the beginning of rebellion. It's a dangerous awakening because once you see the cracks, the whole illusion starts to collapse. That's when escape becomes inevitable. Not because they want to betray their country, but because their country has betrayed them. The night of the escape is always the same, dark, cold, and silent. The defector waits until the patrol changes. The dogs bark in the distance. The moon hides behind clouds as if conspiring. Each step toward the river feels like walking through another lifetime. There's no going back. Every sound is magnified, the rustle of reeds, the crunch of ice, the heartbeat echoing in the chest. Time stretches. The water is black, moving fast. On the other side, uncertainty. Behind, death. And between them, only a few meters that feel like eternity. For those who make it across, the first breath of foreign air is not freedom, it's disbelief. They look back at the river, expecting to see soldiers, but there's only the wind they've crossed. Their feet sink into Chinese soil, but their mind is still trapped behind the border. It will take years for their soul to catch up to their body. Some collapse in tears, some keep running. Some look up at the night sky, whispering the names of those they left behind. They've escaped a country, but not their memories. The journey has only just begun. In the distance, the faint hum of a city they were never supposed to see glows against the dark. Neon lights, cars, laughter, all the sounds of a free world just beyond the river. They stand there, trembling, wet, alive, and for the first time they realize what it means to have a choice. The unthinkable journey has begun. The propaganda begins before language. In North Korea, even before a child can form sentences, they are taught to chant. Not words of wonder, not the names of parents or places, but the names of the leaders, repeated endlessly until they become instinct. By the time the child learns to walk, the portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il are already watching from the walls, their glass polished daily by trembling hands. Dust on those faces is an offense, an unspoken sin. That's where control begins, not through violence at first, but through reverence. A reverence so complete it feels holy. The schools are temples of ideology. Children rise in unison, salute the portraits, and recite oaths of loyalty. Their books tell stories not of the world, but of one family, the Kim dynasty, painted as divine saviors. The mountains, the rivers, the sunrise itself are said to exist because of them. Every textbook, every film, every piece of music is designed to collapse the distance between worship and obedience. It's not education, it's indoctrination disguised as devotion. By the time a child reaches adolescence, they no longer ask why. They only ask how to serve better. Control is not maintained through fear alone. It's built through rhythm. There's a rhythm to North Korean life, a constant choreography of obedience, morning assembly, group labor, nightly study sessions. The state decides where you live, what you wear, what you read, who you marry. Even love must serve the collective. To deviate is to disappear. And disappearances are never discussed. Every neighborhood has its eyes. The Inminban, the People's Units, are local surveillance groups that ensure no one steps out of line. They track who visits whom, who speaks out of turn, who forgets to bow to the portraits. Every few nights, members gather to confess their thoughts in self-criticism sessions. It's not enough to obey. You must prove you've doubted yourself correctly. Children report parents. Wives report husbands. Loyalty is tested through betrayal. It is a society where honesty becomes a weapon and silence a shield. In Pyongyang, the illusion of prosperity hides the machinery of control. The city glows at night, but only there. Beyond its borders, the rest of the country is dark, literally and metaphorically. The capital is not a reward for citizenship, it's a stage. Every citizen there is hand-picked for loyalty, bloodline, and appearance. They are the actors in a national performance meant for the eyes of the world. When foreign visitors arrive, the lights turn on. The smiles return and the show begins. But once the visitors leave, the power goes out again. And the city returns to its grey stillness. Every phone call, every letter, every piece of communication passes through the invisible hands of the state. Even private thoughts are subject to control. People learn to divide themselves. One self that thinks, another that performs. Over time, the distance between them disappears, and the performance becomes the only reality left. The perfect citizen is one who no longer knows they are acting. In this world, escape is not just a crime, it's treason against the sacred narrative. The border is not only protected by guards and guns, but by generations of fear. People are told that the outside world is worse, that South Korea is a wasteland ruled by beggars, that America is a land of monsters, that defectors are tortured, enslaved or eaten by wolves. The regime doesn't just control the borders, it controls imagination. It turns ignorance into armor, yet cracks form. Smuggled USB drives, loaded with South Korean dramas, foreign news, even Western movies, slip across the border through Chinese traders. In small villages, people gather in secret, pull the curtains shut, and watch flickering images of a world they were told doesn't exist. A man sees a South Korean supermarket on a small screen for the first time. The shelves are full, people are laughing, nobody wears a badge of the leader. The man's face tightens. He doesn't believe it. He replays it again and again, trying to understand. That disbelief becomes the beginning of his rebellion. The regime knows this too. It fights back not only with police but with memory. Entire lives are rewritten. If someone disappears, their home is reassigned, their name removed from school records, photos are burned. The past itself becomes flexible, reshaped to fit the story of eternal perfection. Truth is elastic, stretched to the needs of the state, and if you resist, you are unmade. There are three classes of people in North Korea, though no one calls them that out loud. The core class, loyal by blood and privilege, the wavering class, tolerated but distrusted, and the hostile class, condemned by ancestry. If your great-grandfather was accused of owning land before the revolution, your grandchildren will still pay for it. Social mobility doesn't exist. Fate is inherited. The system ensures that loyalty and fear are passed down like DNA. Every citizen has a file. Every movement, conversation, and expression is recorded by the State Security Department. Even marriages must be approved through background checks. Before you marry, the state investigates your family tree for traces of impurity. Any relative who defected, was imprisoned, or questioned authority. Love must be clean, blood must be pure, and even then you are never safe. Religion too is forbidden unless it worships the leader. Churches that remain in Pyongyang are facades, set pieces for foreign eyes. Real believers meet in basements, whispering prayers to a god they are told doesn't exist. For that they risk execution or exile to the Kwanliso, the political prison camps. There, people cease to be people. They are reduced to labor, to numbers, to examples. Stories emerge of children born in those camps who believe the world itself is a prison because they've never seen anything else. The psychological control extends into the smallest corners of life. In homes, radios are fixed to state channels, unremovable, welded to the wall. Even if you wanted silence, it's impossible. The voice of the regime fills every room like oxygen. When the great leader dies, the whole nation weeps on command. Those who don't cry hard enough are investigated. Grief itself is monitored. To feel the wrong thing is treason. Foreigners often ask, why don't they rise up? But how can you rise against an enemy who lives inside your mind? The genius of the regime isn't its brutality. It's its ability to make oppression feel like love. People are taught that hardship is proof of virtue, that starvation is sacrifice for the collective. When a harvest fails, it's blamed on the weather or on the people themselves. The leader remains infallible, a god who cannot be questioned. It's not fear that keeps the system alive. It's faith carefully engineered to look like devotion. But the illusion falters when the stomach aches too long. During the famine of the 1990s, the arduous march, millions starved. The regime called it a test of endurance. People ate grass, bark, and rats. Mothers carried their dead children to fields, hoping the soil might one day forgive them. And through it all, the loudspeakers kept playing songs of triumph. It was in that era that the first major wave of defectors emerged, not from ideology, but from hunger. When a body is dying, no lie can keep it loyal. Even now, the ghost of that famine lingers. Food is currency. Corn is power. Smuggling networks thrive along the borders, exchanging rice for money, money for passage. The state pretends it controls everything, but its power ends where hunger begins. In the silence of empty kitchens, people start to realize that obedience doesn't fill a stomach. That's when the whispers start again. Control also works through spectacle. Military parades display impossible precision, thousands moving in perfect unison like one organism. To the outside world, it's impressive. Inside, it's suffocating. That choreography mirrors the internal rhythm of the regime. Order at any cost, beauty built from fear. The soldiers who march are young, often malnourished, yet they move like machines. Each step declares loyalty to a system that feeds on them. The secret police, the Bowibu, are the regime's invisible hand. They operate everywhere, unseen, unaccountable. Their presence is both real and imagined. You never know who belongs to them. That uncertainty is the point. It turns everyone into a potential spy. Neighbors become informants, friends become watchers, the population polices itself. Fear becomes efficient, requiring no violence, only the possibility of it. Sometimes, though, violence is necessary to remind people it's real. Public executions are staged in fields and factory courtyards. The audience is mandatory. Children are brought to watch. The condemned are accused of stealing rice, hoarding foreign money, or attempting escape. Their last words are never heard. The gunfire echoes across the valley, and the crowd is told to remember. Fear is rehearsed into memory. Yet despite everything, despite the walls, the files, the spies, human instinct persists. People still fall in love, they still dream, they still hope. They find small ways to resist, a hidden song, a forbidden book, a moment of laughter when no one's watching. These are quiet rebellions, invisible but powerful. Because in a place where the state owns everything, even a secret smile is an act of defiance. And then there are the whispers from across the river, the voices of those who escaped. They reach back through smuggled phones, sending coded messages to loved ones still trapped inside. "I'm safe," one might write. "I'll find a way for you." Those messages are dangerous gifts. To receive one is to risk your life, but also to feel something long forgotten. Possibility. This is how the system begins to unravel, not through revolution, but through realization. The regime can control hunger, movement, speech, but not the mind forever. When a person begins to imagine a world beyond their borders, the foundation of tyranny starts to crack. That is the moment the state fears most, not when someone runs, but when someone thinks of running. Every defector's story begins with that forbidden thought. It might come from a movie scene, a rumor, a glimpse of light across the river, something small but unstoppable. Once the mind crosses the border, the body soon follows. The revelation, then, is this. The real prison of North Korea is not its fences or guards, its belief. A belief so deeply woven into life that to escape it is to destroy yourself and rebuild from ashes. The journey out is physical, but the journey away from indoctrination is spiritual. Many defectors will tell you that the second is harder. And so, in the quiet corners of the country, the whispers grow. A mother saves rice for the trip. A man studies the stars to find north. A child watches a smuggled film and wonders why the people in it aren't afraid. Somewhere, a soldier stares across the river and feels envy for the lights on the other side. The regime calls it treason. The world calls it escape. But to those who live it, it's something else entirely. It's awakening. It's the moment when a lie finally breaks under the weight of truth. Hunger is not a sensation in North Korea. It is an atmosphere. It fills every room, every silence, every night. It hums beneath conversations, shapes decisions, and steals the softness from children's faces before they learn how to smile. Hunger is the great equalizer, the force that strips away illusion faster than any ideology ever could. And it is where every defector's story begins, not with a dream of freedom, but with the ache of an empty stomach. In the provinces, far from Pyongyang's polished streets and staged smiles, the world is quieter. The loudspeakers still sing of glory, but their volume cannot hide the coughing of the malnourished. Women with hollow cheeks trade scraps of food in secret. Farmers plow barren fields, pretending not to notice the soldiers who confiscate their harvests. Children carry buckets to streams that have long since dried, walking past signs that say, "Prosperity through labor." They repeat the slogan out loud, not because they believe it, but because it's safer to fill the air with lies than with silence. A mother stands at the threshold of her home, one room, made of mud and straw, and counts the days since her son last ate. She can't remember anymore. The boy's eyes no longer seek her face. They drift toward the horizon, toward something that doesn't exist. She knows what the others whisper at the well. He won't last the winter. But she still rations what little corn she has left, one handful for him, none for herself. She knows hunger differently. It's no longer pain. It's memory. It's what remains when the body gives up but the heart keeps pretending. In this world, theft is survival, and survival is rebellion. The farmers who hide a handful of rice under their clothes risk execution. The soldiers who trade state grain for cigarettes risk being shot. The black market, the Jangmadang, becomes the country's true heart, pulsing beneath the watch of the regime. It is here that the first cracks appear. Here, people learn to barter, to calculate, to disobey quietly. It's the closest thing to freedom that exists within the borders. Every transaction, every exchange of forbidden money is a whisper against control. But the regime understands something most outsiders don't. Starvation can break the body, but fear breaks the soul. And once the soul is broken, obedience becomes effortless. That's why, in times of famine, the government tightens its grip instead of loosening it. They make people attend rallies while their stomachs twist in agony. They make them chant the slogans louder than their hunger. They make them perform gratitude for food they never receive. It's not food they're distributing, it's despair, disguised as loyalty. Punishment is not random, it's a language. It speaks to everyone who watches. When someone is accused of hoarding grain or listening to foreign radio, the entire village gathers. There are no trials, no questions. The condemned kneel in the dirt, their hands bound, while an officer reads out their crimes. The crowd is forced to cheer. Children are told to clap. And as the shots echo across the fields, the message is clear. Loyalty is not a choice. It's the only way to stay alive. But even in that engineered terror, cracks appear. One of the defectors, a woman named Sumi, once described her awakening like this. It wasn't a decision. It was a feeling that something was wrong with the air. She had watched her sister die of fever during the famine. The doctors demanded bribes she couldn't pay. The officials confiscated her father's cow for the army. And one morning, as she walked past a government poster showing smiling workers holding grain, she laughed. It was a tiny, helpless laugh, but it was the beginning of her rebellion. Because once you laugh at the illusion, it stops controlling you. Her journey began with a whisper from a trader, a man who had contacts across the Yalu River. "There is food in China," he told her, "but you must cross at night." She didn't hesitate. Hunger leaves no room for hesitation. The night she left, she told her mother she was visiting a friend. She never said goodbye. She walked for hours through frozen fields, the wind cutting her skin like knives. At the riverbank, she hesitated only once, to look back at the faint glow of her village. She thought she saw her mother's shadow in a window. Then she stepped into the water. The current was stronger than she expected. It pulled her under. Her breath burned. She kicked, gasped, fought her way toward the other side. When she finally crawled onto the bank, her clothes frozen to her skin, she realized she was barefoot. She'd lost her shoes in the river. Her feet bled. Her lungs ached. But for the first time in her life, there was no loudspeaker telling her what to do. Only silence. She wept, not from fear but from confusion. She had crossed the border, but the part of her that belonged to North Korea had not yet died. Not everyone makes it that far. Many die before they even reach the river. Others are betrayed. There are informants everywhere, villagers paid to report those who plan to flee. Sometimes they are family members. The state rewards betrayal with rice or soap or favors. Sometimes, with nothing more than survival. A father might report his own daughter, believing that one betrayal could save the rest of the family. But it never does. The state takes everything. And then there are the camps, the Kwanliso, places so hidden that their locations are erased from maps, their existence denied even by those who live nearby. Entire families vanish behind their gates. Inside, there are no names, only numbers. Prisoners wake before dawn, march barefoot to the fields, and work until their skin cracks. Food is a bowl of watery soup, sometimes with grass floating on top. Punishment is arbitrary. A misplaced word, a tired look, a delay in bowing can mean death. Bodies are buried in unmarked pits, forgotten by all but the earth. Those who survive the camps rarely speak of them, but when they do, their stories come out like fragments of a nightmare. One former prisoner described seeing birds flying overhead and feeling jealous, not of their wings, but of their ignorance. "The birds didn't know they were free," he said. "I would have traded my life to be that blind." The camps serve one purpose: to remind the rest of the country that there is no outside. They are warnings carved into the landscape, invisible but omnipresent. In North Korea, fear has geography, but not all suffering is visible. The deeper torment lies in the mind. To live in constant deception is to lose the ability to recognize truth. Many defectors describe their early days in freedom as unbearable, not liberating. They wake up terrified that someone will discover them. They apologize instinctively. They whisper even when alone. They feel guilt for eating too much, for smiling, for surviving. Years of indoctrination have rewired their instincts. Freedom feels like chaos, and chaos feels dangerous. For some, the hardest part of escape isn't crossing the border, it's learning how to stop being afraid. One man, now living in Seoul, said he still dreams of the loudspeakers. He wakes up expecting to hear the morning propaganda songs. He keeps his shoes neatly aligned, his clothes folded with military precision. "I can't stop obeying," he said. "Even now, I listen for orders that never come." The price of survival is memory. Those who make it out must carry the ghosts of those who didn't. They dream of the ones left behind, their mothers, their siblings, their friends. Some try to help them escape, but it's a dangerous mission. Chinese authorities work with North Korean agents to capture defectors and repatriate them. The return journey is hell, beatings, starvation, forced labor. For women, often worse. The regime calls it re-education. In truth, it's erasure. There is one story that haunts the networks of escape, a mother who carried her baby across the river. She had heard that freedom lay just beyond the opposite shore, but halfway across, the child began to cry. The sound could alert the guards. So she covered the baby's mouth with her hand, holding it close to her chest as she swam. When she reached the bank, the baby was silent. Not asleep, but gone. She buried her child under a tree on the Chinese side and kept walking. When asked years later how she survived that moment, she said, "I didn't, only my body kept moving." Stories like hers are not rare. They're the hidden truth behind every defection that succeeds. For every person who reaches safety, many more die nameless, their bodies carried downstream, swallowed by rivers that remember more than the people who built the borders. Inside North Korea, the state continues its performance. Parades march, banners rise, new slogans appear. The illusion of stability remains. But underneath, something irreversible has begun. The hunger that once silenced the nation has taught its people something dangerous, that the state cannot feed them. And once a government fails to feed its people, it cannot feed their faith either. The descent, then, is not only physical, it's moral. It's the slow, painful realization that the motherland they were taught to worship is devouring its own children. It's the moment when obedience collapses under the weight of grief. It's when the song of devotion turns into a whisper of escape. Every defector carries a piece of that descent within them. It shapes how they speak, how they look at the sky, how they touch food. Some never stop apologizing for surviving. Others find strength in telling their stories, not because they want revenge, but because silence feels like complicity. "If I stop speaking," one woman said, "it will be as if I never escaped at all." The world listens, but rarely hears. For many outside observers, North Korea is an abstraction, a dark country, a geopolitical puzzle, a place of curiosity. For those who lived there, it is something else entirely. It is a wound that never closes. The border doesn't end at the river. It follows them into every conversation, every memory, every dream. Still, hope persists. It moves quietly, like the river itself. It passes through secret radio signals, through the hands of brokers, through coded phone calls whispered from one continent to another. Hope has no flag, no leader, no anthem. It lives in the hearts of those who have seen too much to keep believing, and yet keep believing in something better. The unthinkable journey, once begun, never truly ends. Because escaping North Korea is not only about crossing a line on a map, it's about reclaiming humanity stolen piece by piece. It's about learning how to be hungry and still dream, how to be afraid and still walk forward, how to lose everything and still believe that somewhere beyond the darkness there is light. There are two North Koreas, the one the world sees, the grey, starving, obedient one, and the other, hidden beneath layers of privilege and fear. A world of velvet carpets and crystal chandeliers where silence smells like perfume instead of smoke. It exists underground, in villas carved into the mountains, in guarded compounds shielded from the hunger and cold. Here the children of generals and party elites learn English, play violins imported from Europe, and drink coffee flown in from China. While the rest of the nation starves, The privileged few dine under portraits of the same leader who tells the people that sacrifice is their greatest honor. To understand North Korea's cruelty, one must understand its duality. The regime's survival depends on illusion, the illusion of equality, the illusion of devotion. But inside the capital, beyond checkpoints guarded by soldiers with emotionless faces, lies another country. It is a city within a city, where electricity never fails, where imported cars glide down empty streets, where the internet exists, quietly, secretly. While peasants in the north trade corn for soap, the ruling families watch Hollywood films on private servers. They sip imported wine as propaganda blares about imperialist corruption. Their children learn the language of their enemies so they can one day rule over them. These elites are bound to the regime not by belief, but by dependence. Their lives, their luxuries, their very identities exist because of Kim Jong-un's favor. They are prisoners of comfort, a class created to perpetuate the illusion of paradise while serving as the regime's eyes and ears. Every mansion has hidden cameras. Every servant is trained to report what they see. Trust is a myth, even among those who dine at the same tables. Deep beneath Pyongyang, tunnels stretch like veins, part bunker, part sanctuary. Some lead to underground palaces, others to private train stations used only by the ruling family. During times of crisis, Kim and his closest advisors vanish into these depths, leaving the surface world to fend for itself. Rumors persist of a secret rail line that connects Pyongyang directly to the Chinese border, an escape route for the powerful should the system ever collapse. No one outside the highest circles knows if it truly exists, but in North Korea, rumors are often truer than facts. The luxury of the few is built upon the misery of the many. Every chandelier in the capital is powered by the coal mined by starving laborers. Every imported delicacy is purchased with funds from illicit trade, weapons, methamphetamine, counterfeit currency. The state has turned crime into governance. The elite's privilege is paid for in human suffering. Beyond Pyongyang's glow lies another world, hidden cities, known only to those who build them. Closed military zones that don't appear on maps, entire towns dedicated to nuclear research, concealed beneath mountains. In these places, workers live their whole lives without seeing the outside. They are told their work is holy, their isolation patriotic. Few ever realize that they are buried alive for the sake of weapons they'll never see. But even within this machinery of secrecy, corruption thrives. The same generals who preach purity smuggle gold through diplomatic channels. The same party officials who condemn capitalism keep foreign bank accounts in Switzerland. The hypocrisy is so vast it becomes invisible. The regime thrives not by denying sin, but by monopolizing it. And yet, beneath this hierarchy of deceit, an invisible network pulses, the underground economy. Traders, smugglers, brokers, and defectors working together in a quiet rebellion of survival. This black market connects the starving farmer in Hyesan to a businessman in Dandong, to a church in Seoul, to a defector network in Bangkok. Rice becomes money, money becomes passage, passage becomes freedom. Each transaction chips away at the illusion of control. Some brokers are angels in disguise, others are devils wearing smiles. They promise safety and sell betrayal. They operate on trust that doesn't exist, on desperation that can't be measured. A family pays a small fortune to send their daughter across the river. The broker takes the money, then vanishes. Or worse, delivers the girl to Chinese traffickers who sell her to rural men as a wife. For many North Korean women, the road to freedom passes through slavery. Those who escape often discover the world of the elites from the outside, through stories whispered in South Korea or glimpsed in declassified photos. The realization burns, the knowledge that while they starved, others feasted, that the suffering was never shared, only staged. "We thought the whole country was starving," one defector said. "We didn't know there were people eating steak under golden ceilings." That betrayal becomes a second wound, invisible but deeper than hunger. But the regime cannot survive on fear alone. It must feed itself on symbols of power, wealth, and divine right. Kim Jong-un's life is designed to appear supernatural. His private island, with imported horses and amusement rides, exists not only for pleasure but for myth-making. His custom-made train, armored and silent, becomes a moving palace that carries the illusion of omnipresence. Every photograph of him laughing with soldiers, inspecting a factory, or watching a missile launch is a ritual, proof that the God King still walks among his people. To the outside observer, it looks absurd. To those inside, it's survival. The elites must believe the lie to justify their comfort. The poor must believe it to justify their suffering. And those who know it's false must pretend, because the truth is fatal. In the capital, even the architecture is designed for control. Streets are wide, sterile, impossible to cross unnoticed. Buildings face the same direction, bowing to the statues of the Kims like obedient servants. Surveillance cameras hide behind propaganda posters. Inside the Ministry of State Security, entire departments monitor the movements of foreign diplomats, journalists, and suspected traitors. The city is not a place. It's a performance. Every window, every corridor, every parade is choreographed to maintain the illusion of unity. Yet beneath this order lies chaos. The ruling class lives in fear, not of rebellion, but of each other. A single rumor can destroy a life. A careless joke can become a death sentence. Even family ties are fragile. Loyalty to the supreme leader outweighs blood. In this world, paranoia replaces morality. There are no friends, only temporary allies. Still, the system persists because it rewards participation in the lie. The generals get cars, the scientists get electricity, the loyal get survival, and the rest, the farmers, miners, teachers, get slogans. The country runs on a hierarchy of illusion, those at the top pretending to believe, those below pretending not to see. There are secret hospitals for the elite, stocked with imported medicine and Western equipment. There are private schools where students learn calculus and French, not to understand the world, but to mimic it. There are underground clubs where forbidden Western music plays quietly, where diplomats and party children dance in the dim light, pretending for a few hours that they live somewhere else. Meanwhile, in the provinces, people die of treatable infections. A cough becomes a death sentence, a broken leg becomes permanent. But in Pyongyang, life expectancy stretches artificially, inflated by privilege. The regime uses this as proof of national health, masking the divide with numbers that mean nothing. Some of the most disturbing secrets, however, lie not in luxury, but in belief. The cult of the Kim family has replaced religion so thoroughly that even the privileged live within it. They keep portraits in every room. They bow before eating. They celebrate the birthdays of the leaders like holy days. Yet behind closed doors, many no longer believe. They drink to forget the emptiness of worship. They know they are acting, but cannot stop. Foreign intelligence agencies call this the internal rot, the slow decay of conviction among those who rule. It's invisible but lethal. A regime can survive famine, but not doubt. And that doubt, once born, spreads quietly through the upper ranks, infecting those who have seen too much. Defectors from high positions speak of parties where the elite mock the very ideology they enforce, of generals who wear Rolex watches under their uniforms, of diplomats who smuggle liquor and cigarettes to fund their lifestyles abroad. For them, the revolution has become a business, the ideology, a brand. And yet, the poorest citizens still bow to the same statues, cry the same tears, and send their sons to the same army. The deception is complete because it is total. Everyone plays their part, willingly or not. But the world is changing faster than the regime can censor. Cell phones, once reserved for the elite, have trickled down to traders and border residents. Through them, information seeps like light under a locked door. A video of soul traffic, a message from a cousin abroad, a photo of a supermarket shelf. These are small sparks, but they ignite imagination. The illusion begins to falter. Even some within the regime's inner circle have started to doubt. Quietly, carefully, they reach out to brokers and foreign agents. Some send their families abroad under false names. Some stash money in foreign banks just in case. They smile on camera, but their eyes are elsewhere, toward escape routes, toward insurance policies, toward the cracks in the wall they helped build. For decades, the regime has thrived by convincing its people that there is no outside world. Now, that lie is dissolving from within. The elite have seen the other side. They've tasted its wine, worn its clothes, used its phones. They know what they've denied their own people. And once you've seen that, you can never fully believe again. The forbidden networks that once carried only rice and cash now carry something more dangerous: truth. It travels through USB drives, encrypted messages, whispered testimonies. Truth, once introduced, cannot be fully contained. It spreads through borders and minds alike, softening the walls of fear that took decades to build. North Korea's secrets, once hidden in darkness, are now being exposed by those who once protected them. Defectors from within the elite describe the leader's hidden life, the offshore accounts, the luxury estates, the private islands. Each revelation chips away at the regime's myth of purity. Each truth told aloud becomes a crack in the iron mask. And yet, as the illusion collapses, the danger grows. The regime's grip tightens in response. More surveillance, more purges, more fear. It's a cycle as old as tyranny. When truth approaches, power panics. But the truth is no longer contained. It's leaking through the cracks, through the laughter of the privileged, through the whispers of the hungry, through the prayers of the hidden believers, through the trembling voices of those who escaped. The exposure has begun. The light is coming. And for the first time, even the shadows seem afraid. Freedom is not loud. It does not arrive with flags, applause, or speeches. For those who escape North Korea, it comes quietly, like breath returning after nearly drowning. It seeps in slowly, disguised as confusion, disbelief, and guilt. The first days in freedom are not filled with celebration. They are filled with silence. Because after years of noise, the endless propaganda, the chants, the rehearsed devotion, silence feels unnatural. It feels dangerous. Many defectors describe the same first moment. Standing in a crowded street somewhere in China, South Korea, or even Thailand, surrounded by people who do not care who they are, and realizing that no one is watching, no one is reporting, no one is listening. The freedom to disappear, to exist without fear, is so overwhelming it feels like vertigo. They do not know what to do with it. They move cautiously, their eyes darting, their hands trembling. Freedom for them must be learned like a new language. They start with small things, choosing what to eat, walking where they please, speaking without lowering their voice. Each act feels dangerous at first, as if a soldier might appear from nowhere to correct them. Some wake in the middle of the night expecting the sound of the morning broadcast. Others flinch when they hear laughter, because in North Korea, laughter in public is rare and suspicious. Freedom is not the opposite of fear. It is what remains when fear has nothing left to feed on. But with freedom comes something heavier: guilt. Survivor's guilt. The knowledge that they escaped while others could not. It clings to them like shadow. They think of the families they left behind, of the mothers who will be questioned, of the siblings who will vanish into camps because of what they did. Some defectors never call home again, knowing that even a single word could condemn those they love. The river they crossed becomes a grave that separates not just nations, but lifetimes. There are those who try to start over in South Korea, hoping to blend in, to rebuild. But the two countries, though shared by blood, are divided by time itself. The North is a frozen relic of another century. The South moves at the speed of light. Defectors arrive with nothing: no money, no skills the modern world values, no sense of trust. They are given apartments, education, counseling, yet they carry habits that betray them. The way they bow, the way they speak, the way they look at food before eating it. Some South Koreans see them as outsiders, relics of a nation most would rather forget. A defector once said, "I thought freedom would be happiness, but happiness feels foreign, like wearing clothes that don't fit." In North Korea, emotions are prescribed. You know when to cry, when to smile, when to kneel. In freedom, no one tells you how to feel. And that absence, what most call liberty, can feel like chaos. Others find purpose in their pain. They join organizations that help new defectors, or testify before the United Nations, or speak in schools to tell the truth about their homeland. They become living witnesses to what the regime denies, but even this act of truth-telling carries danger. Many defectors still receive threats, even abroad. Agents of the regime operate silently, tracking, intimidating, punishing through fear. North Korea's reach does not end at its borders. It extends through whispers and warnings, through the fear that the past might knock at the door. For some, faith becomes the only refuge. Hidden believers inside North Korea often pray to survive another day. Once free, they pray for those who cannot leave. Their faith transforms from secret to defiance. They speak of forgiveness, not for the regime but for themselves. They forgive the silence that allowed them to live while others died. They forgive their own survival. In the quiet of their new lives, memories return in fragments. The smell of burning wood from winter fires, the texture of cornmeal porridge, the faint hum of propaganda songs at dawn. Each memory is a thread pulling them back to a world they no longer belong to. They carry that world inside them, heavy and invisible. Even in freedom, they remain marked by hunger, by fear, by loss. You can leave North Korea, but North Korea never fully leaves you. Some try to go back, not to live, but to rescue. They work with brokers and missionaries to extract family members through the same routes they once took. Each mission is a gamble. Success means reunion. Failure means death. Many are betrayed. Some vanish trying, but they keep trying. Because in their hearts, escape was never about themselves. It was about opening a door for others. Others lose themselves in the noise of modern life. They drown their memories in neon lights, in jobs that demand too much, in cities that move too fast. They build new identities, sometimes even new names, pretending that the past was a dream. But the past has a way of following quietly, waiting for the stillness of night to whisper reminders. And then there are those who cannot adapt. The silence of freedom becomes unbearable. The faces of the dead return in sleep. They find no place where they belong, not north, not south, not anywhere. Some end their lives in lonely apartments, leaving behind letters that say the same thing. I was free, but I couldn't forget. For those who survive, survival itself becomes an act of rebellion. To wake up in freedom, to breathe without permission, to exist without performance. These are victories even if they feel small. They live as evidence that the regime's control is not absolute. Every defector walking freely in Seoul, in Tokyo, in London is a reminder that the wall of fear has cracks. But freedom has a cost that outsiders rarely understand. It demands something North Koreans were never taught. Choice. What do you want? Where will you go? Who are you? In a world where every decision was made for them, choice feels like a test with no correct answer. It overwhelms, paralyzes. Some find guidance through counseling, others through community. But many wander through the early years of freedom like ghosts, unable to decide who to become. The world, meanwhile, continues to watch North Korea from a distance, through satellite images, documentaries, headlines. It sees the missiles, the parades, the handshakes between leaders, but it rarely sees the human cost. Behind every image of power is a family divided. Behind every smiling soldier is a child who hasn't eaten. Behind every defector's story is a silence too heavy to translate. And yet, there is resilience. The human spirit, even after decades of fear, finds ways to heal. In small apartments in Seoul, defectors gather to cook northern dishes, to sing old songs, to remember without shame. They build families not bound by blood but by survival. They laugh, not because they have forgotten, but because laughter itself feels like victory. The unthinkable journey that began with hunger ends in something harder to describe: awareness. To see both worlds, the cage and the open sky, and to know that freedom is fragile. Many defectors say they no longer pray for revenge or even reunification. They pray for awakening, for the day when the walls of fear crumble not from bombs but from within. And perhaps that day will come. Perhaps the whispers growing along the border will one day become a roar. Perhaps the children now watching smuggled videos will grow into a generation that no longer believes the lies. Perhaps the river that once swallowed so many will one day reflect lights of unity instead of division. Until then, the defectors carry the truth across borders, across languages, across time. They are living witnesses to the strength of the human will, the proof that even in the darkest systems, the spark of freedom cannot be extinguished. Their journey is not finished. It never will be. Because the unthinkable journey was never only about escape, it was about becoming human again. And in the silence after their story ends, there is no music, no applause, only breath. The sound of someone who has crossed the river and learned at last how to live without fear.